Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like for you to introduce ourselves. We are Adriana Gonzalez and Patricia Pico, and we are going to introduce for you to our topic for today is content language, CBI. Content-based teaching differs from traditional language classes because language comes second to the content. In other words, the teacher runs a course on other subjects topic, through which students also learn English. English ends up as subordinate to the material, although the teacher must recognize and be prepared to help students with language skills. How do you teach content in your class?
Okay, it is important to state first that content-based instruction is one of the methodologies that is used at the school that I work for. We have been working for it over the last 3 years, and this year as the head of language department, I'm trying to implement this methodology with all my teachers because I do believe it's an excellent way for our students to develop language. So the first thing that we usually do is to choose a subject of interest regarding mathematics, social studies, science, and then we find different sources of information. They can be reference books, audio, video, lectures, even a real person. The idea is to divide your class in small groups. It's more effective that way. And then you assign each group a small research. So they have to go and use the sources of information in the target language, which in this case is English.
Okay. What type of activities or tasks do you plan for your students?
Okay, so there are many activities that you can use to apply CBI in your classes. Okay. I'm going to explain, or I'm going to give you examples from the ones that I believe are the most effective. Mm-hmm. We work with job interview simulations, class debates, assigning roles. I will explain this in a moment. Group of experts using a variation that is called Jigsaw, which is an excellent, the one that I just explained before. Mm-hmm. Tic-tac-toes, role plays, mini projects. But actually you can be creative and innovate in your own activities while you having clear that your target is not to teach them the language per se, but to develop a content in which they will use the language, so you can create your own activities.
Perfect.
This is an example of how a jigsaw activity works, which is very effective in class when you want to cover different sources of materials regarding the same topic. You divide your students in groups of 4, and in each group they decide to choose an expert. Once they have interacted with the material and they have answered questions and explored all the information present in the documents you gave them, they have the expert to remain in their group while the other members of the other groups go and rotate through the different experts. Then they go back into their home groups and report what they found. In this way, you are covering all the materials, you are covering all the different points of view you wanted them to explore. At the end, you can have a plenary session so you can, or your students can share what they found interesting in those materials. The activity working rotations, you can have 1 or 2 sessions while they cover all the information. Students really like this activity, and it's a very effective way for them to understand and learn how to use different sources of information in a meaningful way.
Now I see what the subordinate injunction functions also to connect the two clauses, the independent and independent. And the dependent clause is not complete without an independent one. The subordinate conjunction is used to add information to the
This is a preschool teacher explaining how she works CBI in her class.
Okay, so in my class, my students, what we do is they are exposed to the world. They are learning. We don't see subjects as a science, maths, so we have everything connected. And the English as a second language it's coming to them without them realizing that they're learning just English. Everything is related, and they're having fun and they're enjoying just by the fact that they're seeing stuff that is in the world, and at the same time they're learning the second language.
Okay, now tell me, what do you want to do with them in an experiment? Like you have a class in which they are going to go in a science experiment. So what is your target there?
My target is the language, but they don't even know that that's the target.
Exactly.
But they're learning about science. We're gonna use cotton, water, glitter. So all those vocabulary words are related to the language, but they don't know. So they're gonna learn, and they're gonna pile up a lot of vocabulary, without knowing.
What are the advantages of using this method? Let's listen from a first grade teacher.
Okay, Moni, why do you like to use CBI in your classes?
I think it can make learning a language more interesting and motivating. Also, I think students can use language for a real purpose and they can be more independent and confident.
What skills does CBI foster in students? Let's listen from a 7th grade teacher.
Because it helps the students to develop valuable study skills such as note-taking, summarizing, and extracting key information from text.
What would you choose as the subject matter? And what kind of materials are most suitable for you?
Okay, this is probably the most important question when you try to have CBI in your classes. Subjects are many, but you have to evaluate if the content is good for what you want them to develop in terms of language. And regarding materials, well, it depends on what you have available, but usually materials are mostly attached to the sources of information you want them to use to develop the language.
Okay. Let's listen from what a 9th grade teacher has to say.
Because I need my students to go to different sources of information, at least 5. They need to read them and research all over again to see if the information is correct or not, and then they have to re-evaluate what they just read about and then discuss if that information is suitable for the assignment that they have to do.
What kind of assessment would you take into account in order to evaluate your students into CBI method?
There are many ways to evaluate CBI, and they also depend on the activities you created for your class. But obviously, you have to work with rubrics of evaluation because CBI intends for you to use different kind of activities. Mm-hmm. And each activity will evaluate them regarding not just the language and not just the content, but how they work as a team, the period of research, how they approach the sources of information. So one of the most important things or most valuable things to do in here is to work with rubrics, with checklists. And in here, you have to use a lot of differentiation because they are working in groups, they are researching information from different sources. You assign them different roles within the group work, so you can not evaluate them in the same single way every class. You have, again, to be very creative, and you have to learn yourself to create your own rubrics. And of course, at the end of the grade, at the end of the course, at the end of the project, you can have a general evaluation, a quiz, a formal assessment for them to give the information that they learned about from there to demonstrate what you wanted them to learn. But you will have to observe a lot. You will have to get to know your students a lot before creating these assessment tools.
Our students' needs, right?
Yes, because some of them are going to be really good at looking for information, but others are going to be better at the oral expression. Others are going to be better creating the presentations, and you have to take that into account because CBI and differentiation work together. Okay. Like actually, with you, when you're trying to implement CBI in your classroom, you cannot have it without differentiation, especially if you are working with groups because you are taking advantage of your students' skills, and they are not all the same, of course.
I do agree with you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.